are not falling into rack and ruin, which we already know what that looks like in the county. And, you know, we're fixing their homes so they don't become homeless. Like, that's the other really big picture thing here. So thank you all for your continued support of us. I'm happy to answer any other questions if you have them. But this was a thank you to you all. This was not a comment or concern about the budget, except fund us, please.
So I got my mic on. So there must be obviously a list of people that you interact with that have, and that list I'm sure is big, correct?
Absolutely.
And how do you determine the priority list of so many needs by so many people?
It's first come, first serve. So, you know, they call me, they go on the list, and we work through that. And I have a variety of Class A, B, C contractors, as well as handyman that work with my one contractor to make sure things are being done per code. So it's all in the order of how I receive their requests.
Have you made a presentation to the Social Services Board?
Say it again?
Have you made a presentation of your activities to the social? Okay.
Absolutely, I have. Yes.
Is that income based or
Income based.
And
Absolutely.
what's that range look like?
So right now, my ceiling, because it fluctuates with whatever I can tap into with that USDA funding, their top ceiling for a family of 4 is $52,400. So I have to take everybody's income into consideration, unfortunately.
Right.
So, yes. Okay, thank you all so much, and I'll leave these for you.
Thank you.
This is not my pen.
Is there an age parameter, ma'am?
62 and older for the 504 grant, but we work with 60 and over. And of course, it's all, you know, if somebody comes to me in their 50s and they're really in dire straits, we try to work with people in their, you know, I try to take into consideration, you know, what they've got and what I can do.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Nash. I live in the Ware district, and I'm not exactly quite sure how this process goes because all it said was ask questions. So I'm going to ask one question, and whoever can answer. Yeah, normally with comments you can't answer back. I understand all that. The first question I have would be with the firehouse, right? So with the loan with the firehouse, you guys are looking at all these options. I know the last meeting I watched online, and you guys were talking about interest only and all this other stuff, right? So the question I have is, where are you guys actually sitting individually, not as a board, because that's all, you know, collective at the end, but are you guys looking at the best interest of the county when it comes to the annual payment, or are you guys looking at the overall value of the loan, and are you guys looking at spending $20 million to fund in addition to, you know, because some of those loans are at $37 million once the life of the loan is done. Some of them are only at, it was 27 million, I think, was like the lowest one, 28 million. And that makes a big difference over a 20, 30-year period. And are you guys looking, there were some options where you could pay it off really without fine, right? So I think that would be a good idea. So where are you guys at individually on that, or can you answer that way?
Yes, we can answer. Is anybody willing to go first, or y'all want me to go first?
Go ahead. You can start.
Okay. So the firehouse is a project that we've been working on, and you know, with some of the slows and the delays to get us to the point we are now, for me, I'm looking at every option. If I can have an option that allows us to pay it off quicker as we have debt service retire, that's a plus. If we have an opportunity to lessen the impact to the citizen, meaning the lowest annual payment, as well as the lowest amount that we have to borrow based on interest rates, and those two coincide, then absolutely I want to do that. But for me, it's going to be based on the impact annually to the taxpayer and how we are going to fund that and be able to fund that with retiring debt service after we get through the first couple of years, which I know is going to be the biggest challenge for us.
Okay.
Let me go in reverse. I think I remember the parts, but you can tell me if I forget. We've gone through a process of requesting qualifications for financing, and that's where your bank issues are. I'll come back to that in just a second. I think, however, there was an implication in what you said that we're intending on spending $20 million.
No, I was saying, like, the highest was up to 20
Right.
million.
I think with the board, what my belief is that we absolutely want it to come in more like 17.1, 17.6, some lower number. And then when you include the cost of the firehouse and the 8% contingency and the other fees that go with it, you know, I'd like to see it waffle up around probably 18. So there's my corpus number. I'm going to echo what the chairman said on the financing side. I think there are two issues that are sort of at play. In the next several years, before we really start to have accelerated debt payment reduction, we're pretty tight for the first couple of years, I mean, to be honest with you. And so if we could reduce those payments in that first couple of years, we may not have to juice the real estate tax rate that we otherwise might have to do. And my goal is to always minimize the real estate tax rate. Always, 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 always. Yes, I think all of us are going to look at what the total long-term cost is, that bottom, you know, that bottom line down there. I know that the consultants thought, and I think that it is preferable to have a prepayment option. And I'm going to remind you of what you may or may not know, Matt, and that is that part of this, for lack of a better phrase, transaction or deal, the county is going to acquire 7 parcels of land on Walker Street and Main Street. So the fire department is going to turn over 7 of those parcels to Gloucester County. And it is, I think, my intent, I believe the intent of the board, but my personal intent would be that if and when we can sell those parcels, we would use those proceeds to pay down that loan more quickly. And I don't know the aggregate value of those parcels. I've heard people talk about, and this is not me, people have talked about assigning a value to these parcels of around $3.5 million. But you and I both know that a piece of land is only worth what a willing seller and a willing buyer are willing to pay for it that particular day. So I don't know if that number is realistic or not realistic. Does that, did I miss anything?
Yeah, no, you answered. Yeah, you answered.
Yeah, I'll add a couple of comments because I think the board is in alignment as to where we want to go to make sure that is the least impact on the community citizens. If you listen to that discussion, there was an interesting component that said, what if we do a construction loan ahead of time and then pay off the construction loan? Again, we're looking at every conceivable option that will benefit the fire department and the county. As it's been mentioned here, the first couple of years are really tough, which is why we're looking at perhaps interest only the first couple of years. The prepayment's great, or no prepayment penalty is great, so the companies that offer that will be certainly given first consideration. And again, as you heard, the interest rate is not settled until the day we go out and ask for it, because we're not sure where interest rates are going to go, other than from what we heard from Davenport, they're probably going to go up. So the sooner we act on things, the sooner we can negotiate an appropriate interest rate and amount. And then we'd have 4 qualified bidders, correct? There are 4. And each of those are people that have been involved in firehouse construction. So we're hoping that we'll get a reasonable bid within the budget that we've outlined. So there's a lot that's going to happen, a lot of moving parts. that will all align themselves probably within the next 3 to 4 months.
I got you.
I think Tony's on.
So there's not a whole lot that I can add that you didn't already hear, except the one piece of the pie that I would just add is that we've been in this process a long time, as you know and the citizens know, and I feel like we're making positive strides. And the one thing, so you want to know how I feel? I'll tell you. When we left that meeting the other night, I felt like we had two things going. We were on the same page, right? And the second thing is that as a group, we are trying to do everything we can to lessen the fiscal impact of the taxpayers, which is why you heard me say during my comments that if it's going to take a tax increase down the road, how long can we push that tax increase out so that it doesn't affect Matt Nash or it doesn't affect anybody else? So for me, it's firehouse is coming, right? It's coming. But at the end of the day, how can we spread it around so it doesn't the fiscal impact is not deep. It's coming, and we all know it's going to come. It's going to come. I mean, just go put gas in your car. That's what I told somebody today. Just go fill your gas tank up. It hurt. But at the end of the day, let's do what's best. And what's best is looking at all options. First of all, seeing how much it's going to cost. Because as you know, we can talk about it till we're blue in the face. But until we see hard numbers, we're just talking. So I think you will get probably the answer that you're looking for once this group and the community sees the hard numbers.
I know when I was running for office, I went to meetings and sat in the cold bench chairs, and I knew this was going to be a big part of my decision-making as a board member. And so I've done everything that I can do to ask the questions and look at everything that can be done, and I feel very confident that we're looking at everything to mitigate the tax burden on the people and to get the fire station built. It's like he said, it's been a long time coming, and I think that I think so far we've done a really good job at looking at all the options. And like Tony said, there was a lot of negotiating and gnashing of teeth to get where we are today. So I think we're close to the finish line on that. And once we get the rest of those items in order, I think we'll be able to, give you guys more of an answer of what that's going to look like out down the road. So.
The really only thing to add for me is, this is another example of kicking the can down the road. And I said it 1,000 times, I know, over the last year, but we are in a position now to where we have to look at everything that's laid out in front of us to be fiscally responsible. We've got a lot of blue-collar workers here, and raising taxes is not a fun thing to do, but unfortunately it's a necessity in order for us to finally get ahead. And I would agree with my counterpart down there, Mr. Nicosia, that after we left the last meeting and after Davenport's presentation, I felt a whole lot more confident in where the future lies for not only the citizens in the county, but also with the fire department. It's been a long time coming, and I think this entire board is looking to make the right financial decision to lessen the impact on the citizens.
I think somebody stated earlier that we're on the same page. Before, I don't even know if we're in the same book. So, yes, we need to look at reducing the fiscal impact on the citizens, but I think it needs to be also look at the fiscal impact in the future. I think you brought up a great point in your question, and that it's $20 million. If we could reduce that to 10 or 12, that would help. Fortunately, we're going to be paying off some debt in the near future. If we could do interest only for a couple years or 18 months and then bring it back and revisit it then, or not revisit it, but have the look at it so it's a little bit higher payments now, so our kids and grandkids aren't the one that's paying the higher tax rates to justify it. So I think it's going to be a little bit higher taxes initially. At least I think that's how it probably should be. But we need to look at the numbers all the way around to see what's best for the county now and in the future. I just don't like the idea of paying a whole lot extra.
Same here. So can I get one follow-up just with what Dr. Leming? So you said that there were 7 parcels of land that are going to be sold eventually, right? So eventually, every 2 years we have an election. So this board won't be the same in 2 years, 4 years, so on. Is there anything being put in place to ensure that the funding for those, or the revenues from those properties are actually used for what you guys are intending for it? Because we've heard a lot of conversations throughout the budget talking about buses and this money, you know, all that other stuff. What guarantees are going to be put in place, if any?
This board, and I might say this incorrectly, but this board cannot dictate to a future board what and how it allocates and appropriates the funds or the properties that we ascertain or that we have at this time. So every election will have a different set of eyes that will take a look at this. So as these properties become available to us and a decision is made, because we may not want to sell them right away. But as the time comes, it'll be up to each individual board to make that decision. And if they decide to do that, that's great. If they decide to use it for something else, because let's say something's happened in the county and they don't need that revenue to pay that down because they're easily making those payments, they might have a greater need to use that money. You know, in the grand scheme of things, it would be nice to know that that goes for immediate pay down, but things can change and we may not need it to use it that way.
But also, it might not be used that year. We might have, depending upon who we use for financing, we might not be able to pay it ahead, make extra payments.
Well, that was
But-
part of the question.
Yeah,
was-
we don't know. Depends on who the because we haven't decided on any financing. But with being co-owners with the fire department, it's guaranteed that the county is not going to not pay payments. So, because we're not going to lose our share, just any future boards. So the firehouse will be paid for. But, you know, to say, as Mr. Chriscoe said, to say that it's going to, if we sell that for $200,000, we're going to put $200,000 extra that year. We don't know if we can. But if not, we'll put it in a fund where it's used to make payments at a later date.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So with all that wiggle room that you just heard, this board has a consensus statement that was voted on or has a unanimous support that says that we intend, this board intends, that if one or all of those properties were to be sold during this board's term, it is our intent to use those proceeds to pay down the debt if we're able to.
Dr. Leming, may I make a correction there? We didn't vote on anything. We agreed to it.
By consensus.
We agreed to it.
Okay.
No votes were taken.
So just to clarify, what I got out of that was this board can pass on debt, pass on revenue, and just simple thinking, right?
Can't pass on potential revenue.
Yeah, so you can pass on debt, you can't pass on potential or, okay.
You can't pass on debt.
Well, that's what they're doing when they sign a 30-year loan, they're passing on debt for 30 years.
It comes with, I mean, yeah, it is, and it's an appropriation that we make to debt service, and we do that part of the budget process. So that'll be it's it's a operating cost, it's not an operating cost. It's the cost of providing facilities and projects that we need to produce our government. So while we will eventually take ownership of that land, if it takes 18 months to get the firehouse built and that land to be transferred over, whoever is sitting here will have to decide how that is spent. If they want to decide in a future board, if they want to decide, hey, we're not paying the debt service this way anymore, as long as they find an alternative funding source, they can fund and appropriate and allocate dollars, tax revenue, any way a future board sees fit. So it'll be up to that board to make those decisions, whomever's on that board at that time.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'll let somebody else come up.
Yep, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Terrence Patterson, Gloucester Point. I wanted to come talk about the animal control officers. They've been going through a hard time. There's 4 of them that work, 1 chief, 3 deputies. My concern for them is with the increase from 2024 to 2025, there's been an 18% increase in calls and animal collections to the animal control, which puts over about 536 overtime hours for animal control as of right now. Is there any place in the budget to bring on more animal control officers to help facilitate and relieve what we have right now? Because they are currently overworked, overstressed. I just got a job with Gloucester. I just retired from the military for 20 years, and I decided to go work as a kennel attendant over there for them. And I see the stress that they're going through. Not even with that, but even the nonprofit program, I've been starting grant writing for them as well. So if there's any way we can look into the budget to at least facilitate at least 2 more, especially before 2026 fiscal year and 2027's fiscal year, because it's just going to get worse and worse and worse for them.
I don't believe they even requested additional personnel, did they? For kennel they did, but not for animal control officers. For kennel, okay. So I know that we just started, or we just brought on some work is required for, okay.
I am one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, as we see need, if we see that need and it continues and someone brings that to us, we will have that communication. But to my knowledge, at this point in time, there's nothing additional currently planned other than what we have done.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Diane Jones, I'm in the Ware district, and I would like to again reiterate the fact that when you raise the salaries of the police officers and the school teachers, et cetera, that their salary increase go after the increase in medical insurance, or you negotiate for a lower rate of medical insurance, so that they actually see a raise rather than just spend it on their medical bills. I go to a lot of communities. I've been to a lot of places in the United States, even lived in Northern Virginia for entirely too many years. But I see signs next to fire departments with charts, a big red flame and little levels, and the goal up at the top. And it's a community contribution chart. I know that we antiques sometimes are not among the moneyed congregation, but You have a lot of rich people living in Gloucester. Come on. How many people could you, like the JCs or other community organizations that could do fundraisers to get that down? It makes more sense to me. I know you have to take out a loan. I would wait till you get a new Fed chair who will probably drop the interest rate. But community involvement seems to me like a very good option.
Thank you. And I do know that the fire department does do a lot of fundraising on their own. In the past, there has been a sign, like you mentioned, out, and I know that they have a sign out on their proposed new location with a QR code accepting donations as well.
But I think it's a great idea.
Oh, absolutely.
I think so. And I'll tell you why. And this goes back in history because when I was on Abingdon Rescue Squad, I was a fund drive chairman, and I built a sign that went on the corner of Guinea Road and 17 that had a little box that I would pour red sand as we made money. And having run the fund drive, you're right. I used to go to, what used to be Lou Smith's and all those places asking for money. So, yeah, I think some visual thing on Main Street that shows a chart of where we are, I think could be a really big help. And one of the things I did mention to the fire department was a naming opportunity, because there are going to be rooms and training centers. Why not solicit individuals for an amount to name a certain part of the building for a certain amount? And I've mentioned that several times. There seemed to be some acceptance, but I haven't really seen any move on that. And that could really be very helpful in the big picture. And you're right, there are a lot of well-off people. Many people don't realize how we need these people, the volunteers. And they're there night and day, 24/7. Some are paid, some are not. But, Gloucester is really one of the few communities that really has an unbelievably great fire rescue, both Abingdon and Gloucester. So those are just my 2 cents. I have these memories of going to Guinea and pouring the sand down, and but it worked. I can tell you, it worked.
I'm thinking art shows, concerts, bake sales.
Mr. Nicosia?
As a vice president of Gloucester Volunteer Fire and Rescue for many years, one of my assignments, Ms. Jones, was the fund drive coordinator. And coincidentally, you should bring that up because the man who takes care of the company that takes care of, local company that takes care of producing printing the fund drive letters for us, contacted me today because he could not find his credentials and my name was still in the system. He wanted to know. So I know now that the fund drive letters for this year are about to come out to your mailboxes. I know this is a shameless plug, but goes along with what you say, goes along with what you just said. Every home, and it has expanded immensely under the new vice president. He's done a wonderful job. If you see that Gloucester Volunteer Fire and Rescue envelope, $5, $2, $5, $10 makes a difference. Okay? So just like Ms. Jones brought out, every dollar the community puts in goes to provide services that are priceless. So that's getting, the only reason I know that is because he reached out to me today. So I know they're getting ready to hit mailboxes.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I Wednesday night spent 2 hours stuffing envelopes. So yeah, they're coming out, and again, I echo exactly what Tony just said. Every dollar helps towards the operating costs and the services that are provided by the volunteers. So it's a big deal. It's quite an undertaking. So
Don't forget, Abington sends out letters too.
absolutely, yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think I think it would be helpful to make sure that would be helpful if there was a building fund drive or capital drive versus just operating fund drive.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? If anybody wants to come back again, that's fine.
Have a seat right here.
All right, so Matthew Nash again, Ware District. So assessments, all right, so assessments skyrocketed this last year, right? So I believe it was like 35% that it went up, which it causes more than just your property value going up, because we know that there's only two people that benefit from your property going up if you're not planning on selling. That's the county and the insurance companies. So every year that the assessment goes up, then your taxes go up the next year, the next year, the next year. Every year, I started out with like an $800 a month mortgage. Now I'm looking at $1,600 over a 12-year period. That's a big difference. And I'm in a firm fixed rate contract at 2.5%. So it's not the loan. I was able to refinance actually when the rates dropped. But every year, my payment's going up $100, $200, $300 a year. With that being said, I would assume the majority of the county is in the same situation if they've got a mortgage rate, right? So everybody has to pay more insurance, more taxes. With that being said, with a $6 million deficit for this year, right? So just over $6 million, whatever. I've seen the spreadsheets that were put out, and it's all about where we can raise taxes in order to make up that $6 million. I know I've talked to a couple people, but are you guys actually looking at like getting your spending back down to where we have our revenues, or are you only looking at raising taxes?
Well, two things. I'm going to start.
Yep, please.
On average, assessments only went up 16.5% across the board. So then we're going to, wherever the taxes go, we'll then equalize taxes. Tax rate, correct. And then with equalized tax rates, you're going to have people that are paying less, paying the same, and paying more. That's just law of averages. So when you work it out that way, that's where that number is, and it's not the 30% where yours went up on average. But also, I think all aspects of the budget needs to be looked at, from the spending to the revenue. And what you saw on Thursday night was just an introduction on where basically you've got 3 board members here that have never seen the worksheet before. Actually, you've got 7 members who've never seen that worksheet in that iteration. Because Ms. Callaway and Ms. Steele, when they put it together, they developed it so we could use all the different options available to us to adjust revenues, and not just real estate taxes. We're looking at personal property, we're looking at boats, cigarettes, everything, meals. So we're looking at everything across the board, and then get a handle on where that is, and then we can figure out where we need to cut expenses to come back.
Yes, Dr. Leming.
Too sophisticated for me, Matt. I'm going to start at the stratosphere and come down, if that's okay.
Okay.
So, to me, this is just me speaking. The job of a supervisor over a landmass, the county of Gloucester is a landmass, is a stewardship role. And what we have public services, and we have tax levies that get placed on the citizens to pay for those public services. You have public services and tax levies. And it's that balance between those two that creates increasing or decreasing landmass value. Example, I'm coming down. Let's say the fire services are terrible, and the police services are terrible, and people are leaving the community because their public services are inferior, the value of the landmass is going to take a hit because more people are going to leave than come in. Along the same lines, if the tax rate is incredibly high relative to other communities, people are going to leave Gloucester in droves and move to those communities that have a lower cost of living. The good news here is we have this wonderful school system. We have a wonderful sheriff's department. We have a wonderful fire and rescue system, which at the moment is largely driven by volunteerism. And we have, I think, wonderful parks and recs and wonderful amenities. Our tax rates are relatively low for the public services that balance that we have. And the only reason the assessments go up is because more people want to move into the county than want to leave. So in an odd way, the fact that the assessments went up is kind of a, and you know I wasn't on the board during this time, you know that. So the fact that the assessments went up when I'm not on the board is kind of a testament to somebody's success, probably the previous members who were here. I mean that. All you have to do is look at some other localities who are experiencing the exact opposite scenario, and they're in death spiral mode. And that's a terrible place to be. Coming down a little bit lower, I'll echo what Supervisor Hutson said. I think all options are on the table. You know, we need to look at diversifying our tax portfolio. That's kind of my phrase, by the way. Again, I will reiterate, my goal is to make the least impact on the real estate tax rate that I can. But I think it's going to take a blend of some spreading of the pain and some cutting of the pain to get us to where we'll have a balanced budget. And I like what Supervisor Hutson sort of said, which was that Ms. Callaway and Ms. Steele created this brilliant tool which enables us to all sort of go, well, what if we do this, and how does it look, and what if we did that, and how does it look? And I think we're all in a very blessed posture, and we just don't need to get that balance out of whack. Back to assessments, I've been on different boards. You probably know that. I was on a board at one time where we did reassessments every 5 years, and the shock to the community was palpable every time the assessments came out, such that the community revolted and we changed to annual reassessments. By the way, whether it's 16% over 3 years or it's 7.5%, 7.5%, and 6%, you know, per year. But sometimes that shock of what happened from my last assessment to this assessment is pretty dramatic. And we've seen 16% is pretty dramatic, and I don't deny that. I've had a conversation quietly with some of the staff about what would it look like if we moved to annual reassessments. And there's some problems, there's some problems doing that. Certain areas of the county don't have enough sales in a year's time to be a credible reassessment. And so there are just some technical problems with that sound really good, but when you actually get into the weeds of it, probably or mechanically don't work. But you're right, it directly affects your insurance premium, and your insurance premium we have no control over. You actually don't have much control over, you know, really, and that gets amortized into your monthly payment, and they just send you the new notice that says, hey, this year you're going to pay $250 a month more than you did last year. And that comes back down to being affordable, and I understand that.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
No, so as Dr. Leming alluded to, I think Mr. Hutson, Dr. Orth, and myself were a part of this board when we actually went to our state legislature and said, hey, 3 years isn't even an option for localities in Virginia to do a reassessment. And then we pushed to have the reassessment at the third year because 2 was too close together for our staff that we have in-house, and then 4, we got even bigger numbers. So we would push it off that 1 year. We did that a couple of years, and then we asked the state legislature to change it to allow the counties to do it every 3 years. It was 1, 2, 4, 5, all the way up. And you had different options, and this board felt that it was, or some of the members of this board felt it was necessary to get in it at 3 years to capture some growth, capture some sales. And unfortunately, our growth has been very, very slow the last few years, which is part of the reason that we're seeing some of this, the discrepancy between the asks and the amount of money that we have. And I'm with you, the assessments, I was really concerned that mine was out of whack. I sent in some questions to our assessment team, and they said, no, we still think you're correct. So I was like, all right, well, I got one other person to call. So I called a real estate agent. Lo and behold, they were within $50,000 of what our assessors have said in a range. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to move forward with any type of an appeal because my real estate agent is telling me exactly what my assessor said, that it's such a close number that there's no need for me to continue with an appeal process. So while, the assessment is based on an arm's length transaction from buyer and seller, the homes in Gloucester are bringing this dollar amount. So we will have to work diligently to figure out what is that balance between adjusting the tax rate based on the new assessment and adjusting that tax rate based on the needs and the wants out of the budgets that we have been presented.
And I'll add one other component, again, to what Mr. Chriscoe said. When we came on the board, 3 of us, we did not have an in-house assessment team. That has changed, and we have a really well educated and wonderful assessment team that listens carefully. I mean, it's personal. And the 3 of us, knew of examples prior to our coming to the board where the assessments were done by outside firms that really messed up. So by having an in-house assessment team, if you have questions, you can go right to a person that understands your needs. And that's really special. And I think we're the envy of some of the local communities because it is a process that affects every single individual in this community. Of all the things that we do, this is one aspect that affects everyone. Okay, so we need to get it right and to make sure that it's fair and equitable regardless of who you are and how much land or how big your house is.
Okay, so with all of that being said, just please remember that, we're looking at 50 plus new taxes statewide as well. So while you guys are doing this, just please keep that in mind that, we're already being hit by federal, state, and now even more with the county. So you say you want it to be more equitable. That's a word I would prefer not to use, right? So
correct. And
equity has to do with the house. Yes, I understand. To me, it has to do with that. All right. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but just please remember that we're being hit from everywhere, right?
No,
so,
you're exactly right. And budget time is it's the busiest time of year for a board member. And this is the time of year I get to use my favorite quote, one of my favorite quotes of Winston Churchill, and that is, for a country to tax itself into prosperity is akin to someone standing in the bucket and trying to lift it up by its handle. It's a very daunting task to make your country, your state, your county, your city, your town wealthy based solely on raising taxes. So there's got to be a lot of different ways to do it. And it'd be great if we were seeing some sustained growth where we were getting a nice increase of real estate taxes from new homes being built or new businesses coming to the community. It's been a slow process the last few years, and that's where we're not seeing that increase. It's remained relatively flat and we're trying to, do everything we can to continue the natural growth, which has been slowed.
But with growth, there comes more pressure on our infrastructure as well, too. So it's a twofold thing. We give you more houses, more fire calls, more ambulance calls. I mean, it's more water. So, and really, you don't want to get behind either, with any of this, because that's kind of where we're at with our utilities right now, is we didn't plan for the growth of the future with anything standing so that we could say, okay, we need to do this now because we've grown exponentially. So it's a balance of planning for the future and making sure that those things and infrastructures are there, schools, water, firefighting. And so when I'm with you, I want to look at the whole picture. And I agree with you, we're about to be hit with some affordable living from Richmond. So we all are, I think all of us have really taken a deep look into the budget and looking at every way possible to mitigate any tax hikes if necessary. So,
Mr. Nicosia.
So Matt, I think you'll appreciate this. One of the things that I do is I'm economics and personal finance teacher. One of the very first classes, probably in the first week, maybe in the first 2 weeks, I break out the old checkbook. Kids today don't know what a checkbook is. You have to first explain to them what it is. And after you explain to them what it is, because they all know what a debit card is, but they don't know what a checkbook is. But I still have one. So break out the old checkbook, and I teach this lesson that about just because you have checks in a checkbook doesn't mean you have money in the account to write those checks. So when I came on the board, that's the philosophy that's in my mind all the time. It's for me, it's getting the best for you for the money we have. And when I say you, I'm talking about all citizens, right? So getting the best for you for all I have, but I also keep in mind that to practice that philosophy, so I agree with everybody up here. We're going to take a really hard look at everything, expenses, income, all of it, and try to do what's best for the entire citizenship of Gloucester County. But if you ever want to teach your kids a lesson, grab that checkbook, see if they know what it is. Because you'd be surprised how many teenagers don't know what a checkbook is. And I said, just because you have one of these, and just because you have checks, and just because you write them, and just because you send them somewhere, doesn't mean they won't bounce. Okay? So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a hard look at everything and make sure that at the end of the day, when we roll out a budget, we have taken into consideration all things to get to where we need to get to.
All right. Anybody else have questions? Because I'll just roll if that's okay with everybody. Okay, so facilities, Ms. Legg. And it's not directed at you per se, but you are the head. So, FMRR. So this is something after the joint meeting that I pulled Dr. Ledoux aside because you guys were discussing possibly putting money back into the FMRR for the schools. The question that I asked Dr. Ledoux was, and I know in past meetings you have said that you guys are short personnel, so this is why I'm asking this question. What is your guys' throughput in the facility maintenance sector for Gloucester County without having to go to contracting and spend absorbent amounts of labor cost in order to do the facility repairs that you guys are getting funding for, which you happen to give back $1.5 million over the last however long. So really, what's the throughput? How many man hours do you guys have available with the limited number of personnel that you actually have on your staff?
Are you referring to utilities?
Well, yeah, utilities,
So FMRR
facilities, yeah, it's, okay, sorry. Yeah, so, yeah, I'm talking facilities. I was thinking, utilities, but yeah, I'm talking facilities specific, so it wouldn't go to Miss Lake.
Yep.
So sorry.
Ms. Legg handles the utilities. As far as facilities go, a lot of the stuff that we can handle in-house, and we go out to contract for larger projects. If our staff feels that they can do that, we try to do as much in-house as possible. We have some folks, and I think the schools try to do this as well. They have folks that are capable to do parts of just about anything that we would need, but if it goes to a roof renovation or something on a larger scale, that's when we go out to bid a project or something along those lines. You know, some of the smaller things we try to handle as much as we can with the staff that we have.
So the question is, what's your guys' throughput with the current employment? Like, do you guys have the ability to take on, say, $3 million worth of projects over the next year without having to go through a lot of contracts?
Probably not, but I'm not really sure what project you would be thinking of. I mean, it would all depend on what that project is. I don't see us having staff that could pull together a $3 million project in a year. I just don't think that.
I'm talking total. Like, you know, if the budget called for $3 million FMR for the county.
I mean, to jump in, I mean, sometimes let's just say a motor and something goes. It's better to send it out because we could do it in-house, but it would take up so much time to do it. I think we would need better examples of what you're looking at because it'd be dependent, because we've got engineers that could help contracts do it. So yes, we could do it that way, but to just sit there and say we've got the men and women that could sit there and rebuild, paint, do the soffit work, do this, replace windows or whatever else, probably not. But I mean, I think we would need better examples. I mean, we're looking at the steps on the courthouse, and we're looking at doing those in-house. We have people. He was described as a Renaissance man. He had the skills to do it, and so that's what we're going to put up. And when we get the money together and do a little more research into it, he's probably going to do that in-house. And, you know, we had the handrails at that courthouse building. Staff was able to go in there and sleeve it and do it in-house. So they're doing the day-to-day work and taking on other projects. But no, I don't think we could do anywhere near $3 million additional.
Okay, so with the personnel that are there, you guys are able to do the day-and-day preventive maintenance, but not the repairs.
Oh, we do repairs also.
Well, yeah, but
And
it's
we
preventive versus.
No, we do
like
some.
major
We do
repairs.
some additional projects.
Yeah, we renovated the whole building for one of our programs. Did a
The
beautiful
clerk's
job.
office. I mean, in the past, we've done
depends on the
building
jobs.
or the third floor, utilities building, district courts. We do those when needed, but it's just to sit there and tell you we can do X projects. In addition, we have the ability to do other projects. It just depends on the size of the projects.
Okay, so are you guys looking at putting anything in place to not double fund the same project, right? So
Our procurement's not going to let us do a project twice.
So the $1.5 million that came back from FMR, what projects didn't get paid?
There's no money came back from FMRR.
That didn't get accomplished?
Well, no.
'Cause that was what was said in the meeting.
No, there's $1.5 million in our FMRR. We have a FMRR line item, and that's money that we have not spent on some of the FMRR projects, because it's something we've been trying to grow for a project, that we possibly could do a cash fund, one-time payment of a project. There's not a whole lot of projects that we really need to get done that fall below that $1.5 million that we have. We've seen a couple this year that I think we will probably look at trying to tackle to use some of that money. But that money, I mean, just 3 years ago wasn't even over $1 million. So it takes time to make that money work for us and to give us the biggest bang for the dollars that we have.
So that money was budgeted in a past budget.
It was
It
not
wa-
budgeted. It was available, and it's been in our CAFR. Ms. Callaway shows me it's been in the CAFR. I think we went back as far as all the way back to 16 where it started being allocated. But we just have not used that money because, again, you're trying to get that money to do something for you on a larger scale.
So are you guys trying to keep that 800,000 cushion, or is that, you probably talked internally on that?
We haven't had that discussion. We haven't gotten to deciding which of those projects we would consider using with that money. You don't want to draw it all the way down, obviously, unless, you know, there was a dire need. But I don't see a dire need for the use for that money at this time.
Okay.
I do want to, my understanding is that like each department, I don't know how many departments there are, but each department has maintenance requests and things that need to be fixed. And so although the aggregate of those FMRR funds, the aggregate of each department's total is now 1.5 million, my other understanding is a little bit of yours, and that is that because we're shy on engineers and project managers, there have been some projects that have gone by that just haven't gotten done, and that money hasn't gotten spent, although maybe it was supposed to, either because we didn't have the people to do it, or we didn't have the project managers for it, or we didn't have the engineering for it. So part of what you're saying is probably right. Just so
It was briefed that way in a meeting a few months ago.
I'm just
so-
sharing that with
And
you.
that's where they said there was 1.5.
But I want to go back to what you stumbled across, and that is, at the moment, I don't believe the school board has any FMRR funding at all.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah.
Hang on, just hold. I think that was a great comment that you made. And as a result of that, by the way, almost all of the capital requests that come into the capital improvements plan, a lot of them are coming out of the schools, and they really should be funded out of facilities maintenance, repair, and replacement funds that the school has, instead of coming over onto the county side and competing. And one hypothetical, and this is not a vote, it's just Joe Leming, one hypothetical is typically the schools at the end of the year do not spend their entire budget. They have something called a residual fund balance. I'd like to see the residual fund balance go back to the schools and have it be devoted or dedicated to FMR&R. Now, I don't know that this board can tell that board to do that.
That board asked in the old board in 23, or 22, 23 did ask if, because that was when the state made it legal. So they did ask and it was turned down, but that's here or there. Dr. Vladu was able to give me a number that he said that they could probably do in-house if they did have the funding to do it. So
Right.
he said they do still have some throughput that they can give up. So.
But I mean, in an odd way that, and I'm in an odd way, allowing them to be tight spending their budget so that they have some residual fund balance with which to carry forward to do FMR&R seems like a really good idea.
I agree.
So to your $1.5 million comment, I'm going to have Ms. Callaway explain that FMRR fund and how it is, because it is not that it hasn't been allocated, it's just that we haven't been using it because we're trying to grow it. But I'll let Ms. Callaway fill you in. Facilities, maintenance, repair, and replacement, or replacement, repair.
Yes, I don't want to get too confused with the distinctions of now $1 million-ish. This year we have just under 1.1 in requests, so that's for this current year. But the FMRR policy is that in the past we would set aside it was 750,000, I think, when it started back in 2015, approximately. And so then it would, if there weren't $750,000 worth of projects, whatever wasn't spent would accumulate. And so each year, it was a small amount over the last now 11 years that's accumulated. So when we're budgeting right now, we may estimate to spend, $100,000 on 2 vehicles or 3 vehicles. But if those vehicles come in under bid, the rest of that money may go into that reserve fund balance to be used at a future time. So that balance over the last 11 years has accumulated to approximately 1.5 million. This year, there's just under 1.1 million in requests for projects. So that's the distinction. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, no, I understand that. It was just briefed a couple months ago when that 1.5 popped up. Well, I won't say popped up. When it came out in the slides, it was said that it was because we didn't have the personnel to do the maintenance. So the question that I really had was, if it was for that reason that we didn't have the personnel, we had a cut sheet of what projects were going to be paid, regardless if they were underbid or overbid, whatever. We still said that these, whatever 8 lines are going to get paid this year, 7 of them got accomplished. Is there anything set in place, or is there going to be anything set in place? Are you guys talking about it to say you can't ask for this, get funded for it, and then come back 2 years later and ask for the same thing? You see what I'm saying? That was what I got out of the brief a couple months ago, when this had popped up. So
I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. I mean, if something gets done, we're not going to let someone ask you to do it again.
if it was funded and not done, the funding still sits there until it's used.
So,
But the project's not getting done, but then it may end up on the list again the next year. But according to the request, it was already.
If we allocate the funds for a project, and we allocate it this year, but it takes 2 years for it to get accomplished or 2 years to get done, that money stays with that project until it's spent. So it's not going to come back again, but it may not get funded because there's a tiger beetle that we can't disturb, and there's something that goes on that we can't get something accomplished because of an extenuating circumstance. If it's in our budget and we've allocated funds, it will get paid for when we get the project complete, whether it takes a year or 2 years. There's a lot of times we have to carry over from one year to the next on some of these projects.
And that's understandable. I mean, that's normal, but okay. I think that's all the big questions that I had for now. So thank you for your time.
Diane Jones from the Ware District. One quick question. Are your leftovers put in an interest-bearing account?
Yes, ma'am.
As a matter of fact, the 1% school tax fund has contributed a significant amount of interest that has accrued that really is going to help us with future projects. So yes, it is out there, and we are well aware of.
Future school projects.
Yeah, right, yes, sorry, excuse me.
That's not going to happen. Any other questions or comments for the town hall this evening? Well, once again, we'd like to extend a thank you to everyone who showed up and participated tonight. I know we probably have a couple other town halls for different things this year, but community input is always welcomed, and we enjoy it. It helps us do our jobs better. So, yes.
Did we receive any, you you sent out a note to the board the other day that you had received a citizen complaint about the taxes. I've forgotten who the individual was. Was that in the context of the town hall meeting, or was that just I want to make sure that if somebody thought that they were trying to get into the town hall meeting and either said something to you, or emailed you, or called you, that gets in the meeting, like we usually do in our regular meetings. And if I'm mistaken, just say, I'm Dr. Leming, you're mistaken.
Dr. Leming, sorry, those were comments that were submitted for the previous board meeting that I had missed on the pile on my desk. And when I contacted those, I indicated to them that I would read them on April 7th, not during the town hall.
Okay. Once again, we'd like to thank you all. We appreciate your time. We look forward to seeing you at future meetings. With that, we have another item on our agenda for this evening. I will entertain a motion to enter. Mr. Wilmot, would you please read us in the closed meeting?
Yes, I am. Whereas the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors desires to discuss a particular subject in closed meeting during the course of its meeting of March 30, 2026, and whereas the nature of the subject is personnel matters, more specifically county administrator position and duties, such discussion in closed meeting is expressly permitted by Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1. Now therefore be it resolved that the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors does hereby convene in closed meeting for the purpose herein expressed pursuant to the legal authority herein recited.
Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Ms. Cronin, would you poll the board?
Mr. Hutson? Yes. Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Nicosia? Yes. Ms. Hanson? Yes. Mr. Bonniville? Yes. Dr. Orth? Yes. Dr. Leming? Yes. We're in closed session.
Thank you. We are in closed session, and we will clear the room at this time. Thank you all. Mr. Wilmot?
Push buttons? My wife says I'm great at pushing buttons. All right. I push buttons. Whereas the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors has completed its discussion in closed meeting and now desires to continue its open meeting, and whereas only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed meeting, and the only subjects heard, discussed, or considered in said closed meeting were the matters identified in the resolution by which it was convened. Now therefore be it resolved that the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors does hereby reconvene an open meeting at its meeting of March 30, 2026, and certifies the matters set forth in Virginia Code Section 2.2-3712D.
Is there a motion? We have a motion. Is there a second? A motion and second. Ms. Cronin, would you poll the board?
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Nicosia? Yes. Ms. Hanson? Yes. Mr. Bonniville? Yes. Dr. Orth? Yes. Dr. Leming? Yes. Mr. Hutson? Yes. All in favor?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I move to terminate the employment agreement with county administrator effective 4/1/26.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Cronin, would you poll the board?
Mr. Nicosia?
No.
Ms. Hanson? Yes. Mr. Bonniville? Yes. Dr. Orth? No. Dr. Leming?
Yes.
Mr. Hutson?
No.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-3.
Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint the Deputy County Administrator, Maria Callaway, as acting county administrator.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Cronin, would you poll the board?
Ms. Hanson? Yes. Mr. Bonniville? Yes. Dr. Orth? Dr. Leming? Mr. Hutson? Mr. Chriscoe? Mr. Nicosia? Motion carries, all in favor.
We have one other item on the agenda for this evening. Is there a second? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.